Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to this January the 10th edition of The Truth. Only 355 more shopping days left until Christmas. The New Year seems to be off and running at a rapid pace. We've got a lot to talk about today, and we've got two really good interviews for you. Travis Murcell, the founder and visionary of The Future Is Now Coalition, is going to be talking to us about digital democracy and the future of politics in our country. And then Drew Allen and his book, For Christ and Country, The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. Drew and I had a great conversation just yesterday, and we're going to replay it for you today on The Truth. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Perfect Circle Renewable Energy. As you know, a horrible shooting occurred in Minneapolis that took the life of a protester, and I would add agitator, and we're going to break it down for you, and we're going to show you the gruesome video that came out of that tragic shooting. Now, I want to remind our listeners and inform those that are not aware. I am an ardent believer in accountability for police officers who abuse their authority. In 2006, Katherine Johnston was alone in her home in Atlanta, Georgia, when 6 police officers barged in with a no-knock search warrant, filled her full of 32 rounds of ammunition. I went to her house and I befriended Reverend Anthony Motley, the Baptist minister in the neighborhood who opened the doors of his church, allowing neighbors and people in the English Avenue community to come and grieve and express their anger and their frustration. I have to say that I give a lot of credit to Mayor Franklin, then Mayor Shirley Franklin, and then Police Chief Pennington, who faced the music. They came to the church. They faced the residents. They did not respond defensively. They responded apologetically, and they released transparently all of the information about the shooting of Katherine Johnston. And out of that resulted in my friendship as being established with Reverend Anthony Motley. He and I together then subsequently went to City Hall demanding accountability, demanding justice for Ms. Johnston. We also were successful in helping establish the Citizens Review Board, which is alive today, where people that are aggrieved or feel that they have a grievance against the police can come, file their report, and have it vetted. I only tell you that story to establish the fact that I am not one of these people who's always going to come down in favor of the police when something tragic happens. We saw a similar event in Minnesota just a few years ago when George Floyd was killed by Derek Chauvin, the police officer who responded to the call. Derek Chauvin is in prison today for having killed George Floyd. I felt that it was a very close call. The reality is Chauvin was responding to a complaint filed by a merchant who saw George Floyd shoplift. Derek Chauvin reported to the scene and encountered Floyd. They got into a scuffle, and then Chauvin put his knee on George Floyd's neck in what's called a sleeper hold, and George Floyd tragically died. I say tragically. I value everyone's life. I don't believe in justice being dispensed on the street. So I felt like that was a close call. The fact of the matter is that George Floyd's body, in the autopsy, discovered that he was full of a cocktail of drugs and narcotics. He was hyped up. He was not in a normal person's right frame of mind. Still, he was able to say that he couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe. Derek Chauvin and the other police officers surrounding George Floyd did not intervene and try and get Derek Chauvin to remove his knee from George Floyd's neck, and instead left it there for 12 minutes, and George Floyd died. I thought that that was excessive. But, you know, I still think there's more to that story that we have not been told. Derek Chauvin and George Floyd had worked together as bouncers in the same bar. They knew each other. And when I studied the look on Derek Chauvin's face, it appeared to me that a fair interpretation could have been drawn that he was just angry. I'm not sure that Derek Chauvin wasn't over the top with George Floyd because of something else besides the shoplifting. But we've not been given evidence of that. We have no evidence of that. We know that they knew each other. George Floyd dealt drugs, and they both worked at that nightclub. Were they somehow associated with one another? This is conjecture. This is pure, unadulterated conjecture. But I will tell you that my instinct was that there was more to the story than we've been told. And I'm not sure that George Floyd wasn't settling a score. I'm sorry, that Derek Chauvin wasn't settling a score that had something else at the root of it than just the shoplifting. But I don't know that. I'm just guessing. But my instinct told me that. So it doesn't bother me that Derek Chauvin is in jail. I think the sentence is for 6 or 7 years. Can you look at that up for me, Anthony? But it was complicated, okay? And I'm not sure that a police officer who encounters someone who is much larger than they are should not be able to use force to restrain them, especially when they're hyped up on drugs. That summarizes what happened. The problem is that putting your knee on someone's neck who's saying, I can't breathe, for 12 minutes, I think constitutes excessive, unjustified use of force. What did you find, Anthony? 22 and a half years. And another sentence of 21 years for Derek Chauvin. My observation was that was a response to the public outcry, and that probably Derek Chauvin maybe wasn't given a fair sentence. But we just don't know. But what I do know is that I am absolutely against police officers who use unnecessary force, especially when it is deadly force, unjustifiably. So I am the first to call foul when I see that. Now, I have looked at the videos. Now, if you have small children if you're watching on the live stream or on television and you have small children in the room, I would advise you to excuse them from the room, because we're going to play for you the video from Minneapolis that occurred earlier this week. Roll tape.
A woman in Minneapolis is dead after an ICE-involved shooting. These are live pictures from Minneapolis. There are videos, as we speak, going around social media showing what happened earlier today between protesters and ICE. We're working on bringing you those videos. You can see one of them on your screen as we speak. Basically, here's what it describes. It shows agents in a truck pulling up to a car that appears to be blocking the road. The two agents get out. They walk up to the driver's side of the car. From there, things escalate quickly. One agent touches the car, and the driver starts driving backwards with the agent's hand still on the car. The driver then hits the gas while another agent appears to be standing in front of the vehicle. That agent, more in front of the car, appears to open fire as the car barrels towards him. DHS telling Fox News the officer who fired the shots had been dragged by a car last June in Minneapolis. We've since learned the driver of the car who was shot was a 37-year-old woman. She was killed. President Trump has weighed in just the last 30 minutes. He wrote, "I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer who seems to have shot her in self-defense. It is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety. But the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They are just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate." Now, not long after the incident, just a few hours ago, we saw chaos already beginning between law enforcement and rioters on the streets of Minneapolis. Watch.
Kill someone else! Don't get killed for this. Get out! No, Chris, get out the way! Get out the way of the truck! Move! Move!
Tense in a city that not even 6 years ago was destroyed by political tension, by lawlessness, by agitators. And on that note, not long after that moment you saw on your screen, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey held a news conference where he basically begged for this to be 2026 George Floyd.
I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
Let's first talk about this tragic loss of life, Renee Moore. Let me tell you something. You don't refuse a lawful order from a police officer when he tells you to exit your car. That's problem number one. You see, y'all thought I was going to come down on the side of the deceased, didn't you? Au contraire. I call balls and strikes. I'm factually based. It's not racial. It's not ethnicity. It's not for the police or against the police, for the rioters, against the rioters. It's just a fact question. What happened? First, Ms. Moore deliberately and intentionally violated a lawful order being given by a police officer because she was blocking with her car a public street. I'm sorry, you just don't do that. I don't care what the issue is, you don't do that. Then you add more fuel to the fire by verbally abusing the officer, and then her tragic mistake was she would be alive today if she had not made the decision to use her vehicle as a deadly weapon. She turned that vehicle and tried to speed away from the ICE officers. And I don't think, maybe she didn't intend to, maybe she didn't know there was an officer directly in front of her. I'm sorry. Tough luck. That's what you call, there's a name for it, moral consequence. It may have been an unintended consequence but it was her action. She chose to put that car in drive and evade and obstruct a police officer from doing his duty, and in the process of ran into a police officer. Did she intend to hit the police officer, or was it an accident? It all happened very quickly. So I don't know, but here is another video. This one is from the police officers who fired the fatal shot, and who this woman, Ms. Moore, struck with her car. She struck him with her car.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad. Show your face. I'm not mad.
That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
And for the radio listeners that aren't watching the live stream, you can come and join us on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, X, and Getter. I'd love for you to join us there and subscribe if you'd care to. Like us if you do. But for the radio listeners, you can see from the police officer's body cam that this red SUV that Renee Moore was driving, that she was being obstinate, belligerent, and she put the car in drive and charged straight in front and hit the officer, literally hit him. And he discharged his firearm and shot, and she died. That's that moral luck. That's the name of it. Moral luck. That's what she got, because she behaved unlawfully, immorally, by putting that police officer's life at risk, and she did hit him. So I'm sorry. I've given you 3 examples. Katherine Johnston, no justification, zero. Shoddy police work. They lied to get their no-knock warrant. They got the address wrong. They went to the wrong house and killed this 92-year-old grandmother, then planted evidence and tried to pin it on her grandson, saying that he was dealing dope out of the basement. The reality turned out that he was a straight A student and a Boy Scout. Uh-oh. And then a confidential informant extricated himself from the back of the police car, called 911, said his life was in danger and that they needed to come and put him in protective custody, which they did. And then he told them that they were trying to pin something on him. The whole story fell apart. 6 policemen are in jail, in prison today, because of what they did in November of 2006. Open, shut case, guilty by a jury of 12 men and women. George Floyd, I continue to maintain it was a close call. I actually think that I don't know. He did. I get conflicted on it. He did put his knee on George Floyd's neck for 12 minutes. Do you have to do that to subdue the guy? I don't know. But Derek Chauvin was held accountable and he's in jail. So be it. But in Renee Moore's case, there is no excuse for her behavior. There is no wiggling out of it or calling it something that it's not. She tried to run over a cop. I'm sorry. You got what you asked for, and I hate it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or disparaging the dead. I feel horrible for her and her family, but I'm sorry. She made a fatal mistake. Now, let's zoom out. Well, first of all, here's Secretary Noem and Governor Walz and J.D. Vance. My God, I'm going to have to go take a Valium or something.
Shame! 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 The head of Minnesota State Investigations Agency said that they have been cut out of the investigation into the fatal shooting in Minneapolis. Can you explain that reversal?
I'd like to know where they've been and why they're not out on the streets investigating all of these people that are harassing and inciting violence on law enforcement officers right now. They're allowing the situation to be volatile. They're not doing their work. Yes, sir.
They've been cut out.
They have not been cut out. They don't have any jurisdiction in this investigation.
We have our state. Please go home.
Minnesotans, I will continue to press that we be part of the investigation, that we do the investigation, so that Minnesotans can trust what the outcome is. I don't have a predetermined notion. Yes, I saw the video. Yes, I saw that. But a thorough investigation will see what happened before that. It will take all factors in, and it will come up with a fair and just conclusion. And we will accept that. Very, very difficult for Minnesotans to think in any way this is going to be fair when Kristi Noem was judge, jury, and basically executioner yesterday.
I wish the state officials in Minnesota would investigate why you have so many people who are using their vehicles and other means to actually interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation. The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job. The idea that Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make this guy's life miserable because he was doing the job that he was asked to do is preposterous. The unprecedented thing is the idea that a local official can actually prosecute a federal official with absolute immunity. I've never seen anything like that. It would get tossed out by a judge. So what I'd like Minnesota to focus on is the real issue that they're encouraging people. Minneapolis officials are encouraging people to commit violence against ICE officials. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop.
I agree. And they are the ones to blame. They are the ones to blame. They are fanning the fires by their rhetoric, and words matter. Mayor Jacob Fry saying, ICE, get out of the state. Tim Walz saying, oh, we want to investigate it. So why? So you can tell us that what we can see with our own eyes, it was different than what it appeared to be? We don't need a further investigation, sir. We don't need you to sugarcoat it or try and change it into something that it is not, because we have two eyes, 2 ears, 1 brain, and we can think and see for ourselves. No, thank you, sir. And you know what he's doing? He's trying to do what they always do. Pivot, deflect, zigzag, wobble. But what they're really doing is destroying the country in the process. Why would you oppose law enforcement? Why would you oppose what the ICE officers are there to do when you won't do it? Because you're politically power hungry. And that's what it's all about. You're willing to destroy this country for your own political devices. How sickening. Despicable. I don't know how Vice President Vance is able to constrain himself, because I'm certainly not. I don't try to. I just let you know exactly what I see and what I believe based on the facts with which we are presented. Now, they want to turn this into another George Floyd moment. Now, you heard me say, I'll say again, George Floyd, I think, was a closer case. I think there was excessive force applied. But this was not in any way a George Floyd moment. This was a violent assault on a police officer and a defiance of a lawful order to get out of the car. I'm sorry. She made a big, big mistake, but it's no one's fault but her own and the public officials in Minnesota. They have fanned the flames. Shame on you. Here's what the BLM founder said.
Not only do we need ICE out, but we need accountability from the top.
Come on.
So Kristi Noem needs to be terminated as well.
Indeed.
She is reckless, and her actions in defense of ICE, that she has been promoting this propaganda, that it is reckless, it is unprofessional, and she is incompetent to serve in that position.
That's right.
Now, I have spoken with you this morning, or this afternoon, as it is now, professionally and factually. She is just giving you conclusions to shape a narrative. They're unprofessional. They're, what else did she say? What did she say in that clip besides unprofessional and that ICE needs to get out? And it's just a bunch of baloney. Just tell us how it is unprofessional. Tell us why it is wrong. Give us the meat on the bone instead of just these summations that you singularly come up with. Give us the factual basis for what you believe. Well, you're not going to do that because you can't. Because there is no defense for someone who chooses to use their weapon as a deadly force, an instrument of deadly force, which is exactly what happened here. We have another clip from Secretary Noem? Okay. So this is my take. Joe Biden let in 10 million illegals into this country because he thought that if he gave them Obama phones, transportation to the heartland of America, like New York City, put them up in the Roosevelt Hotel, gave them a daily stipend and a motor scooter to tour around the city, that they would then, in these sanctuary cities and states, be Democratic, left, liberal states, that they would be given an opportunity to vote. And of course, they would vote for the Democrats who paved the way for them to come into this country illegally, did not perform their jobs, did not do any vetting, and allowed them to come and sully our country because it was not the brightest and the best that they let in. Now, many of them are very good, but that's not a part of the equation. Really, I mean, whether they're good or bad has nothing to do with it. They're illegally here. And this president, Donald J. Trump, took the same oath of office that Joe Biden took. And part of that oath is that you will uphold the Constitution and the laws of this country. And the laws of this country prohibit illegal immigration, illegal people to enter our country illegally. And we have every right to deport them. Now, we've talked about how we do that, and I've got some reservations about the mechanics behind it. But, you know, this is the flip side of that. The numbers are so unbelievably large that there's no way you can process all 18 million individually. Now, I've offered a plan that would allow us to do that, but unless somebody adopts the Gordon plan, then we will have no alternative but to use a big net, and some people will get caught up in that dragnet. But it is not the people's fault that are enforcing the laws. As imperfect as it may be, it is not this administration's fault that enforcing the laws may be imperfect in its execution. But when you have George Soros, which I believe we do, funding protesters that can come and try and defeat the ICE agents from performing their duty, because, you know, they're human too. I mean, they're going to get fatigued and they're going to get tired. And I bet you a lot of them just throw their hands up in the air and quit. It would not surprise me if after this we see mass resignations within ICE. And I hope that's not the case. But, you know, they are human and they are acted upon by their own psyche. And they're working long hours, they're fatigued, and they're persecuted in the performance of their duty. And they've got agitators and activists on the streets decrying what they are doing. But the blame rests squarely with the people that opened our borders and invited these people in. And I say, you know, to those people who tried to legitimize Joe Biden as the president of the United States, we're now learning what I've known for 5 years now. 2020 was stolen. And we're getting confirmation of what we've been telling you now for 4 years. 2020 was stolen. And I said that there were 40,000 illegal votes in Fulton County. We now have learned that there are 320,000 illegal ballots because they were not certified. You can't certify an election where the ballots were not certified according to state law. So look, you're the people that did that, the Bill Barrs of the world, the John Brennans, the James Comeys, the Barack Obama and Hillary Clintons, you're getting exactly what you deserve, except you're not the ones paying the price. You're not the ones paying the price. The people that are paying the price are the people who you opened the borders to and allowed them and invited them into our country illegally. That does not legitimize it, not in any shape, form, or fashion. It may justify a more humanitarian approach. But, you know, these people came in by the tens and hundreds of thousands in groups, migrations. We saw a trail of people trying to come to the United States that extended for miles all the way through Mexico and back into their neighboring countries. And again, they released their prisoners and people from mental institutions to come to this country. And now Donald Trump is having to clean up the mess. So don't blame him. Don't blame ICE. I really think that Joe Biden should be tried for treason. He flagrantly violated his oath of office and put this country in a position that it could be destroyed. And I frankly, I think it was an intentional, deliberate act. And he allowed spy balloons to traverse our country. He allowed military age fit Chinese men to come into our country. He allowed terrorists from Yemen and Afghanistan and Iran and Iraq to enter this country undeterred. And I am convinced that there are sleeper cells within our country that are waiting for the signal to commit terroristic acts inside our country. And Donald Trump knows it, and he's trying to do something about it. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the ICE agents. And damn you, Tim Walz, and damn you, Mayor Frey, for speaking out against law enforcement officers that are working to try and clean up your state, where you have perpetuated illegal Somali immigrants to come into the country and then allowed them to steal at least $10 billion and maybe upwards of 30. You've created the mess. You are to blame. And now you're fanning the flames by criticizing ICE and this administration. To hell with you. That's the way I feel. That's the way I see it. That's the way I feel. And I think every living American needs to stand up and support Donald Trump, his administration, ICE, and his determination to get rid of the bad actors that came here under the Biden administration with completely open borders. Mayorkas and Merrick Garland, they should do perp walks. And so should Brennan, Comey, and Clapper, Obama, Biden, and Clinton. They're the worst things that have ever happened to this country. And it's not a partisan statement. I've known Democrats that I liked and appreciated. Zell Miller, Sam Nunn from Georgia are two of them that stand out. But John Fetterman, I can stomach because he will tell the truth on occasion. But this Democratic Party today of Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, what's the guy that from California that was sleeping with a Chinese spy? And Nancy Pelosi said, "Oh, I don't have a problem with him." What's his name, Anthony? Help me. It's right on the tip of my tongue. And then the congressman from New York, they lie to your face, play us for fools, and then when they get caught with their hypocrisy, they just start making up new lies to cover up for the old lies. And it just so happens that they're Democrats. I don't like people that lie, whether irrespective of their race, their party, their political persuasion. It just does not matter to me who they are. If you lie, I'm not going to like you. And there are Republicans that fall into that category too. When is the accountability going to come? Well, I can tell you one thing. Maduro's been held accountable. We need to hold our own people accountable. For 2020, well, let's go back even further. For JFK, for the Building 7, I'm reluctant to say the Twin Towers because I don't know. But if we agree that Building 7 didn't fall because of the Twin Towers, if that's true, what else must be true? The 2020 election, the January 6th clear theatrics and theater that the Democrats facilitated for Ashley Babbitt and the other lady that was killed that day in the nation's capital, and for whoever tried to kill President Trump and whoever was involved in the killing of Charlie Kirk. I mean, how much more do the American people have to take? I mean, why are we holding Maduro accountable, but we don't hold our own elected officials accountable when their crimes are, I don't know, are they as egregious? I think they are, because they violate their oath and their trust, and they should be held to a high standard. But they're not. They don't even get a slap on the wrist. Instead, what they get is rich by being allowed to violate the insider trading laws of our country. It's got to stop. And by gosh, I want Kash Patel to do his job that he promised that he would do. And I'm sorry, he's lost me. I'm no longer a Kash Patel fan. I've never been a fan. I did support him because so many people that I like and trust like him so much. I said, well, clearly they know something that I don't know. And he did a great job on the Russia hoax. He gets a lot of the credit for exposing that. And so I gave him the benefit of the doubt, but my instincts were never told me that he was the guy. And he has proven now that he is not the guy to head the FBI. He has not done what he promised to do. And the FBI continues to act in ways that I think are very inappropriate and does not do the job that we want them to do. And this pipe bomber that they arrested for the pipe bombs on January the 6th, the autistic black man from Virginia who's in his 30s that lives at home with mama and daddy. It's a sham. And he's got an alibi. But what about the lady that the computer matched 98% based on her gait that today works for the CIA and at that time worked for the Capitol Hill Police? Whatever happened to the investigation into that person? Swept under the rug. But President Trump is going to hold Mexico accountable, it sounds like. Here's President Trump talking about the cartels.
We've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by water, and we are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country, but the cartels are running, and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year. The drugs, it's horrible. It's devastated families. You know, you lose a child or a parent. I mean, parents are dying too with drugs. So we've done a really good job. We're knocking it down. The numbers are really getting to be, they're always going to be too high if you have one person, but they're going down just like the border. The border was a total mess for years. I did it the first time very quickly, and this time I did it even better because this was a bigger mess. This was a border like no other probably in the history of the world. There's never been a border like that when anybody could just walk into your country.
The border's ostensibly really closed now.
Closed. You can't come in. And nobody comes. Nobody even tries.
So the cartels are on notice. Mexico is on notice. Interestingly, the president of Mexico does not want President Trump to come in. And that's hard to explain other than the fact that President Trump says that she's scared. Here's what he has to say on that.
I wonder, Mr. President, though, I want to ask you because from your Vice President, J.D. Vance, said that the message is pretty clear. The drug trafficking must stop. So was this operation a message that you're sending to Mexico, to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there?
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. You know, they like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way, in case you don't know. Yeah. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico.
Absent from the president's summary there was what about the 330,000 children that the cartels trafficked into America that we can't find? I think we've found a few tens of thousands. My recollection is maybe 30 or 40,000 children that were trafficked into this country by the cartels, separated from their families, and just dropped off here. And they're missing. I mean, anybody with a heart and a conscience has got to have a lump in your throat and a tear in your eye that could happen. So the cartels are on notice now. Trump's coming after you. I support it 100%. I wish the president of Mexico showed a little more courage. Maybe she truly is frightened, and I can get that. I don't think that's a good enough excuse, though. You've got an army. You've got a police force. Protect yourself. Protect your residence. Protect your place, your office. But you cannot allow lawlessness to occur in your country. You shouldn't, if you're going to be loyal to your citizenry. So I don't know. Is she scared, or is she on the take? Does she not have the assets to fight the cartels? But look, it doesn't matter what the answer is. Trump's coming for them, and it's none too soon. And I want them to pay a very steep price for the evil that they have brought into this country through drugs and human trafficking. It is sad. It's inexcusable. It's deplorable. I don't have enough adjectives for it. The only answer is force. And I think it's coming. And as I said, none too soon. And I can't wait to see the results. Well, President Trump, he makes these outlandish statements. And then lo and behold, 6 months, a year later, whatever, they start to become looking like maybe a reality. I would say that is the case right now with Greenland. Marco Rubio has been dispatched to Denmark to meet with a sale of Greenland to the United States. Here's what Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, has to say about it.
Why has the administration not taken Denmark's offer to discuss the situation in Greenland? And
I'll be meeting with them next week.
But will you take military intervention off the table?
I'm not here to talk about Denmark or military intervention. I'll be meeting with them next week. We'll have those conversations with them then. But I'm not having anything further to add to that. Well, that's always been the president's intent from the very beginning. He said it very early on. I mean, this is not new. He talked about it in his first term, and he's not the first U.S. president that has examined or looked at how could we acquire Greenland. There's an interest there. But so I just reminded them of the fact that not only did Truman want to do it, but President Trump's been talking about this since his first term. What I think the White House said yesterday is what I will tell you now, and I've always said. The president always retained the option. Every president, not this president, every president always retains the option. I'm not talking about Greenland. I'm just talking about globally. If the president identifies a threat to the national security of the United States, every president retains the option to address it through military means.
Well, Marco Rubio is about to become the acting president of Venezuela, adding responsibility to his other jobs, which includes NARA and USAID, not to mention Secretary of State. Now he's engaging in, I guess, shuttle diplomacy, you call it, or deal making. He's off to Denmark. He's going to try and strike a deal to buy Greenland. Now, why is the United States, why is Trump intent on doing that? Well, I think there are three things that play into it. Hey, Chairman Xi, you going to move on Taiwan? I'll one-up you. Get your submarines away from Greenland because it's about to become a U.S. territory. Hey, Putin, you want to continue to fight in the Ukraine? Have at it, buddy. We're going to annex Greenland. Get your submarines out of there. And so President Trump is protecting our hemisphere. And I do think there's an argument about being aggressive, showing aggression on a sovereign nation, which Greenland is, and also territory of Denmark. I mean, that's not really cool. I don't think that there's will by the American people to take it militarily. I think that would be real aggression. But I can only imagine what's in it for Denmark to let the United States take Greenland. I mean, as I'm saying those words, I feel like I'm sounding crazy. What do you mean we're going to take Greenland or we're going to buy Greenland? How do you buy a country? I don't know, but President Trump has had bigger challenges that he has succeeded with. I predict that we will strike a deal with Denmark. I don't know that that Greenland will become a United States territory, but I do predict that we will forge an alliance with Denmark and that we will achieve a huge military presence in Greenland, and that we will do so with the authority and collaboration of Denmark. And that one way or another, we will effectively occupy Greenland. It will be in the EU's best interest. It will be clearly in our best interest, and assuredly Greenland's security's best interest. Because you got Russian submarines and Chinese submarines floating in international water just adjacent to Greenland. And it poses a threat to this country. And it's also involves the Arctic, and who is going to control the North Pole and the Arctic. So let's stay tuned and see what happens. All right, so Professor Michaels, after Charlie Kirk was murdered, had some very politically charged statements. Here's a clip.
According to the New York Times, Professor Darren Michael teaches acting and directing at Austin Peay State University in Tennessee. The New York Times article says, in part, weighing in on Mr. Kirk's assassination in a Facebook post on September 12th, Professor Michael shared a Newsweek article from 2023 that included a quote from Mr. Kirk about the importance of upholding the right to bear arms. The abrupt firing, which the university acknowledged soon afterwards had violated the professor's due process rights, was made after the professor's post drew a backlash from conservatives, including Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. Senator Blackburn posted a screenshot of Professor Michael's post and tagged the university in it. Professor Michael was fired later that day. The university put out a statement at the time calling his post insensitive, disrespectful, and interpreted by many as propagating justification for unlawful death. That led to a 3-month-long battle, which ended with his settlement and reinstatement last week.
Well, $500,000, that's a pretty good payday for Professor Michaels. I do think that he was fired that his firing was not appropriate. And I say that not because his statement wasn't despicable, but the penalty should have been public condemnation. And maybe the university would, the board, their governing board, I don't know, I know Georgia's structure for colleges and universities that are state-owned. I don't know about Tennessee, but I would suspect that there is a mechanism by which he could be censured. I would have supported that. But your speech you have freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom of reckless speech, particularly when you're in a position of influence like a college professor. So I think condemnation would have been the appropriate penalty, but not termination and not a deprivation of his right to free speech. That is his free speech, and that was government interference with the professor's free speech. Nothing that he said do I like. I thought it was a tasteless, deplorable comment for him to have made in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder. Like, oh, well, he brought it on himself because he's in favor of the right to bear arms. I'm sorry, that's the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights. Charlie Kirk had every right to defend our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And you, Professor Michaels, you can have a differing opinion, but it's just tasteless to do it when we're mourning the loss of an American treasure. So again, public condemnation, absolutely. Termination, no. But $500,000 is a penalty? Okay. So I'm glad he got a big payday, and I'm glad they had to pay $500,000. But would it have happened if he was a conservative? Would it have happened if he was a Republican? Would it have happened if he made a comment? How would it have worked in the reverse? Defending the right to bear arms, if he were a conservative, and if it was an argument about the Second Amendment, and he expressed a pro-Second Amendment sentiment, I think it still would have been reprehensible in the context of Charlie's death. But would he have been, he certainly would have been terminated especially if he was a conservative, except Tennessee, it's a pretty conservative state. But would a conservative be awarded the $500,000? Well, if it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander, then I think this is a great precedent to establish, and that conservatives should be entitled to the same kind of treatment if they make a mistake and say something that is inappropriate and they are then fired for it and subsequently reinstated. Then, okay, if that's the new standard, so be it. I doubt that will be the outcome, though. Travis Miserel is going to be on next, and then Drew Allen. Right after that, we're brought to you today by Perfect Circle Renewable Energy, a restaurant services business right there in Atlanta, Georgia. And they have been in business for 15 years plus. They give great service to restaurant owners. If you're tired of bad service and poor communication, nobody to talk to, just automated attendance and spotty service and dirty service, think about calling Perfect Circle Renewable Energy. You can find them on the web at pcrenergy.com. We're also coming to you today on the John Fredericks Radio Network, along with CDM.press. CDM.press has 13 digital platforms, as well as newspaper publications in Miami and Atlanta and Northern Virginia. I think even in Colorado. They take our feed and put it out on their social media, on their live stream. So we've got several, well over 10 or 12,000 listeners today on CDM.press, like we do every Saturday, just like we do on Facebook, X, TikTok, Instagram, Getter. And you can interact with us on those social media platforms. You can also listen to us during the week on our podcast on Spotify, iHeart's podcast, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And of course, if you'd like to see our past episodes, just go and visit johngordon.tv. And thank you for each of you who have written me over the last week. I always ask, what do you think? If you object to something I've said, or if you agree with it, I'm always happy to hear from you. Either way, johngordontruth@gmail.com. Now let's get right to our first guest. I suspect if you took a poll of everyone in America today and asked them if they were satisfied with our political system, they would probably say no. As for myself, I would say I'm very unhappy with the way that our current political system operates. But all I do is go on radio and television and complain. Travis Miserel is attempting to do something about it. He is, in fact, trying to reinvent democracy. This should be a good one. Travis, welcome to The Truth.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. So tell us about your gig. It's called Think. I don't know. We might work on the branding of that, I think. But anyway.
Sure. So to give you the whole rundown of the vision. So I'm the founder of Think, Futures Now Coalition. We're positioning ourselves as a civic utility, focus on one thing, upgrading how Americans choose our leaders by using today's rules differently. We want to build a more direct democracy so you can vote for you. It's all about building more true citizen representation and a more direct democracy. The two key pillars are digital politics and digital democracy. So first, digital politics is like a new lens, a new way to align on what's actually broken before we talk about any of the technology. Instead of thinking of left versus right on issues, we want to add one more question. Is it up versus down? Up meaning power first, down meaning people first. So like the more populist and grassroots people are the down-serving candidates, and those that are like the establishment or deep state, or those that are entrenched with conflicts of interest are the up-serving candidates. So digital politics helps people across beliefs see how the same rigged pattern, see through the rigged patterns, and start looking at democracy as a system that we could redesign and not just complain about. And so then the second part, the bigger part that we're working towards is digital democracy. So it's going to be a one-stop shop for all political information, built and owned by the citizens. You could think of it as a people-owned platform where that would make elections more fair, leaders more accountable, and civic participation simple enough for everyone to join in. With digital democracy, every candidate will be seen, every citizen heard, and we're going to upgrade the system that we use to choose our leaders. With the result is better choices, better outcomes, and regardless of the party. And we'll be launching all this. The first step of this is our coordination hub that we're launching in January to start coordinating this, get the movements that want to be involved, podcasts, people that are already working on the civic technologies, and journalists, just anyone that wants to be a part of this growth and is not entrenched by the establishment is welcome to join and build this with us.
All right, so you gave us an awful lot to try and unpack. So are you saying that you're going to disrupt the current two-party system, which I would maintain has a grip, like a vice grip on our current national political system?
Yeah, exactly. So it's up to the citizens how that looks. It could either be like, ideally, it might be something where third parties and independents slowly start becoming viable, or it might stay the two-party, but it's just better candidates, more grassroots candidates. But yeah, overall, we're looking to essentially replace the more corrupt candidates with ones that actually serve the people and that their districts are actually happy with their candidates.
Okay, but you're still going to have to do it, based on what you've just said, through the traditional two-party system. And I interviewed a former member of Congress just yesterday. It was a fascinating conversation. And he said that from the first day of orientation, congressmen are instructed that this is a team sport, that you have to go along to get along, and you have to support the team. Now, how are you going to disrupt that notion? Because to me, that's exactly emblematic of what our problems are in government. And as much as I'm not wild about Marjorie Taylor Greene as a person, I flat out just don't like her, okay? I don't. She's a mean, angry lady, and she's just not nice. However, I so support her philosophy and her perspective and her independence. I mean, I ran with President Trump's endorsement in Georgia for Attorney General, and I very much felt unspoken, unwritten pressure to fall in line with whatever it was he wanted me to do. And he called me one day and told me he wanted me to take a position on an issue. And I said, Mr. President, that's not a problem. I actually agree with exactly what you're asking me, the position you're asking me to say or to adopt. So no problemo. But what if I hadn't agreed? Fact is, we'll never know. But I've seen behind the curtain enough. So how are you going to break that? How are you going to disrupt that? I mean, I love the notion. I just haven't become a believer yet.
Yeah, great question. So a lot of part of what the problem is that you're stating here is a lot of it's the reason that to be a team player. A lot of it is the shared infrastructure that, Democrats have infrastructure, Republicans have infrastructure, and some of it is like their donor networks, the parties, everyone falling in line towards a certain goal, and they have to follow their specific leadership. And so the problem right now is that you could even be a grassroots candidate, and you have a major uphill battle. If you're, like you said, if you do disagree with your party, you're going to have a lot of pitfalls, and sometimes it's almost impossible to be able to run successfully.
Yeah, like you're going to get primaried.
Yeah,
I think that's what they call it.
So what we're talking about is really zooming out, and this is where digital politics is more about how to see the system a little differently. And the idea is that like all the statistics show that people their trust in government is at an all-time low, trust in media all-time low. 63% of Americans want a viable third party, so on and so forth. And so what we're doing is we're offering a shared digital infrastructure that everyone that's not beholden to the two parties can have. And so right now you already have like tons of movements, you have civic technologies, people are already building different kinds of political apps that bring transparency. OpenSecrets.org shows big money, and you can see every federal and state candidate and who's funding their campaign. Unusual Whales tries to track the insider trading in Washington with the stock market. So there's tons of information out there. There's different the data is there, the support is there. It's just fragmented right now because we're all divided on our belief systems and ideologies and this and that. So what we're proposing is one umbrella infrastructure that no matter where you land, we're not going to cut you out, that you could be anything from anarchist to socialist, Democrat, moderate, centrist, like everyone's allowed to use this shared infrastructure. And then when you're inside of it, you can start building your alliances. We're going to call them clusters, so everyone that's in it is going to come together under true citizen representation. They want money out of politics. They're not part of the current establishment. They want something different. So that gets them in the door. And then clusters are where we start dividing, like, okay, well, I disagree with you on these issues. And then we'll start building these, using technology, start categorizing, where do people align? Where do different movements align? Podcasts align, candidates align, where do they not align? And just, build a new infrastructure that allows everyone across beliefs to be part of this, make it user-friendly for the citizen, and also be helpful tools for those inside politics to build something alternative. So, like, I guess in a nutshell, it's like building an alternative political system to the current machine.
Well, that is a very ambitious, aspirational goal, which conceptually, I'm part of that 65%. I personally believe that the two-party system in this country is obsolete, that it is restrictive, constrictive, that it does not adequately represent the will of the people. And they pretty much prove that to us every day because their legislation basically is crammed down our throats. Sometimes we like it, most of the time we don't. But I'm telling you, it's almost like again, there's so much to talk about. 65% of the American people want a third party, an alternative party. But Elon Musk, he can go to Mars. He can build a rocket ship and he can build an autonomous car. He can't create a third party. The obstacles are just horrendous. The last person to try it effectively was Ross Perot, and that was in the 90s, I believe, when he surged in the polls and looked like he could really have a chance to win. But whole nother conversation. He got out, then he got back in, he lost his base. Anyway, what you're advocating has never been done before successfully in the modern day anyway. How are you going to overcome all? And all the other thing I wanted to say is, this political system that we've got, it's not a system as much as it has become an industry. Mm-hmm. People used to talk about grifters as if they were the exceptions. Hell, I defy you to find somebody in politics today that's not a grifter. Everybody that I encountered and when I ran and what I've observed, they got their hand out. Not in a bad way necessarily. They bring real value, but you want a list of Republican voters in your district that have voted in the last 5 elections? Go get it. Ching, ching. You have to pay for it. You want leaflets, flyers, bumper stickers, yard signs. You buy those things. You want people to dial and call people. Ching, ching. There ain't volunteers in the back room anymore sipping coffee and chocolate chip cookies. They're paid people. You want a canvas? You hire 20 people to go into your district. You pay them. That's the problem with the American political system today and the law, the world according to John.
Yeah, so a couple points to what you're saying here. So first of all, to be clear, like we're not necessarily saying a third party candidate. Like definitely, I would agree that if a third party specifically would try to run in this kind of a way, that they're not going to succeed. There's too much. Yes, people want an alternative, but they're not going to agree on what that alternative looks like. But what we're talking about is that there's a lot of pieces to how we want to do this, but essentially it's like we want to be able to have like anyone could throw their hat in the ring, and before the general election we want to start showing the electability of candidates. Like give every candidate a chance to be seen without the money, show them what they stand for, their merit, their how consistent are they going to be on their promises, they're refusing to take big money from conflicts of interest. And through before the general election, pretty much the primary season and before that, we're building a system where citizens could go to a place, they could see these candidates that are going to start running. They're going to have a voice, and they'll be like virtual town halls, Q&As, different digital ways to engage the citizens. And during the primaries, we're going to have what we call the people's primary, where citizens can vote in each seat of like who do they want to win in each seat. And they could be people that are inside the two parties or people outside. It could be third parties running against the independents, running against people grassroots within the two parties. Everyone that proves to be gaining traction will be allowed in the people's primary. And then the idea is that citizens can vote on this platform, and we'll show you like, okay, in this Senate district, it looks like the Libertarian is gaining a lot of traction. So in that seat, they have a good chance if you want to vote for them in the general election. And then in this other seat, it looks like an independent candidate might stand a chance. They got a lot of votes through the digital platform. But then there'll be another seat. We'll say, you know what, there's no one that comes close. So if you need to vote for the lesser of two evils in that race, that's fine. So the biggest reason why, some people say, oh, no one wants third parties. Look, they only get like 5% of the vote. But the problem is because it's kind of like this chicken or the egg. It's like they're told their vote would be wasted if they vote for that candidate. So we want to prove and give a chance for a candidate to rise before the general election, and show them, look, this person can get enough support to be a contender in the general election. So that's a huge variable, just running it through this digital process. And then the third point I have here is, you're talking about all the money and stuff. What we're proposing is so much cheaper. We're talking about a streamlined, easier, cheaper system. Instead of every candidate needing to raise millions of dollars for their campaign, like all we have to do is promote one central platform, one citizen-owned platform, that all the candidates are shown there, and they can have all their messaging, their social media content. They could do, videos all they want, Q&As, virtual town halls, all that kind of stuff. So, one system can show, we have about 500,000 elected officials in this country, including the local level, mostly local level. But so for like a fraction of the cost of what we pay for right now, we just have to get citizens to use this system, and then the system shows every candidate, gives them all a voice. And then, citizens, they want something easier. They want an easier way to decide who they could vote for. So they go to this system, they put their zip code in, it'll show all the candidates running. It'll show where their money's coming from, what conflicts of interest they have, where they stand on policies. So, it's a streamlined, simpler, user-friendly way to do our current system better and in a much cheaper way.
It really almost sounds to me that you're aspiring to be a consolidator. It sounds like you want to combine different elements of the campaign because, I'm not trying to be contentious. I'm just being honest, that we tell the truth around here. But it sounds like you're going to augment or replace Ballotopia. That's basically what you're describing is what they do in terms of, putting in your zip code and looking who your elected officials are and who the challengers are. Then, there are those people that do social media management and messaging and text messaging, all that stuff. Are you trying to be the one-stop shop for running a campaign, maybe?
Yeah. We want to be the connective tissue for all those things. We're not here to replace any of those things, but we would want to, like you said, augment that information. So like you said, Ballotpedia would their data would integrate into this, Open Secrets would integrate into this. And like, we're not here to like take it over. We're just trying to build a citizen-owned, infrastructure. And it's not something that we're not going to own it as Fink. We're going to build a legal structure where every citizen will be able to opt into an equal ownership stake of this technology. So it'll essentially be like a private watchdog, but like overseeing our public election system, not run by the government, not run by big tech or party gatekeepers or even Fink. It would truly be every American citizen can opt in once they turn 18. They could opt into this, and they'll be part of the oversight and part of the function of the system. So, so we're talking about streamlining and interconnecting these different things. So another way to see it is like a civic internet, where like all things political could be kind of in one easy place for the American citizens to see.
Interesting. So tell us about your background. How did you come up with this notion? And you must have done something in your past that gave you a ringside seat into politics, and you saw what was being done and concluded that it could be done better, I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, my background was more around like sociology. I have a background, my bachelor's in psychology. I've done more on the business side of like process improvement. So I've been going to businesses and making them more efficient, making things more streamlined, digitizing and modernizing. So that played a part. But the biggest thing was really my psychology background, both my degree, but mainly just the way my brain works. I'm neurodiverse, kind of consider myself autistic. And I have this pattern recognition of human behaviors. I'm always studying how like different demographics see the world, how, what do Republicans see, what do Democrats see, progressives. So it used to be generally just society as a whole. And then around 2016, when it was like mostly Trump versus Bernie, I really started diving deeper into politics. And so the biggest part of this is not so much the technology, because again, we're actually going to be like the referee. We're not here to build the technology. We're here to integrate the technology. We're more here to sell it to the people, make sure it's fair, make sure it ends up citizen owned, make sure they can trust it. So it's really about the psychology. I've been, right now we've been building this, and we have anarchists already in here. We have socialists, we have centrist Democrats, moderates. We've already been proving that people all across the board can like this language, like this vision that we have, and it goes beyond those divides. So I would say it's more of a sociological and psychological perspective.
Well, I like big ideas, and you've certainly come up with one. Sounds like it probably requires some big money too, right?
Yeah, not as much as you would think. But yeah, so it's going to require money. We're going to be pretty much sticking to the small donor thing because we can't get bought out by anything big. So it's going to be more grassroots style. We're still in the earlier stages of launching. January is really when we're really doing a pretty big launch with the coordination hub and really pushing this forward in the public. But yeah, it'll cost money, but there's also a lot of revenue plans on like how, as we streamline these services, that there's also ways to keep it funded and sustained.
So for profit or nonprofit?
So right now we have a temporary legal boat as an LLC, but we are acting as a nonprofit. The legal structures that we're trying to flesh out over time is that Fink is going to be more of like an employee-owned nonprofit. And then Digital Democracy is going to be the citizen-owned nonprofit. So both of them kind of have a unique legal structure. So it's gonna take a couple of years and a bit of money to flesh those things out. But so we're acting as a nonprofit. We're not taking any profits. Everything's transparent. But the legal structure has to be fleshed out where we could build these kind of unique structures.
All right, Travis Misserell. He has conceived of and is on the verge of launching Future Is Now Coalition, otherwise known as Fink. I don't know, Anthony. What do you think about Think? You think we need to work on the branding a bit? I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I just looked it up. I'd never heard of Think singular. I'd always heard it connected with rat think.
Right.
So it kind of had negative connotations for me, but actually the definition is informant. So, you know, we need informants in politics. Nothing wrong with that notion.
We've done our research. We're pretty happy with it. I mean, we've been working on this for about 3 years. I have a team of about 15 to 20 people volunteering their time right now. So it's not like a little thing. We have been testing the ropes, talking to different movements, podcasts, a couple candidates here and there. And really ironing out the language. Like as you're seeing, it's really hard to articulate the big piece of it all. So that's been hard to like really make it as concise as possible. But yeah, it's not just like a little passion project at this stage. It's been pretty well built out, and we would get to a more serious level in January.
Hard to condense into an elevator speech. But nevertheless, Travis, thank you for coming on The Truth today. And I wish you a Merry Christmas to you and your family. And we'll stay tuned. We'll watch your progress.
Great. Thanks for having me.
This is The Truth. I'm John Gordon. We're brought to you today by Perfect Circle Renewable Energy, PCRenergy.com is an Atlanta-based restaurant services business. They take care of your front of the house, the back of the house, and they'll service your grease trap, your waste vegetable oil, and your vent hood. Check them out today. Look them up on the web, PCRenergy.com, right there in Atlanta. This is The Truth. I'm John Gordon. Stay tuned. We've got another exciting guest coming up right now. It's my pleasure to welcome back to The Truth, Drew Allen. He is a publicist that actually helps us get a lot of interesting people on The Truth. He is also an author and a very talented young man. Drew, Happy New Year and welcome back.
Hey, Happy New Year. It's good to be with you.
Well, you have written a book on Charlie Kirk. It's called For Christ and Country, The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk. I can tell you that, you know, I've lived a spell now. John F. Kennedy hit me hard. Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. I was a teenager. I remember the day I went out to go to work, and I turned on the radio in my car, and I heard that Bobby Kennedy had been shot. I was in a state of disbelief. And then Martin Luther King. Those were all political figures except for MLK. He was quasi-political, obviously, but the racial tensions in America were at a boiling point when he was killed. So I thought it was horrible, and I still think it's horrible. But you could almost, it wasn't, but it was enough like JFK and RFK that, I don't know what the right word is. You weren't totally surprised, okay? Mainly because of the racial tensions, the rioting. You know, black people were hung in Mississippi. I mean, there was a lot of violence surrounding the civil rights movement. Charlie Kirk's death just sucker punched me because I did not feel that he was in that same genre. I mean, this guy was a patriot. He was brilliant. He was a disciple of Christ. I could not understand then. I still don't understand why they felt the need to kill Charlie Kirk. What do you think, Drew?
Well, you know, I mean, it's not tough for me to answer, but, you know, it depends on where you lie on what your beliefs are surrounding his death. I mean, you know, I believe it was Tyler Robinson. We can get into that in a little bit if you want, but let me start after his death. what did we see in this country? You know, it really reminded me of 9/11. And there's a chapter in the book called 9/10 is the new 9/11. And that's not to downplay the tragedy of 9/11, but there are people, these are two acts of terrorism that were, 25 years almost apart. And there are people alive today that didn't witness 9/11. I was a freshman in high school when it happened. And, obviously I remember how I felt on 9/11. I definitely remember how I felt when I learned that Charlie had been shot. But what was even more frightening, I think, than like watching the towers fall was the reaction in parts of the Middle East afterwards, which was people dancing in the street, handing out candy to kids, celebrating what happened to us here in America. And you realize there are people that just really, hate our guts. And obviously we're not safe either. After Charlie's assassination, you immediately had people on the left, and it was people that I went to high school with. It was prominent Democrat politicians from Ilhan Omar to AOC and others. It was pundits on CNN and MSNBC, and they were happy that Charlie was killed, and they were justifying it, and they were gleeful. And I just thought it was unbelievable that you had people in this very country who are American citizens, like you and me, and they're Democrats, but they're actually celebrating that this guy who was a husband and a father and a leader, that he was gunned down in a very public way. That really, really kind of shook me to my core.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's just, when you describe those people that were in any way celebrating the death of Charlie, the only thing that comes to my mind is just sick. Those people literally are mentally ill. I would never celebrate the death of another human being because of their political or religious beliefs, ever. Now, I would celebrate the death of someone that goes in and kills people savagely. I have no problem with the death penalty in horrendous cases like that. But this is just pure evil, sick. Do you think that anything has changed since they killed Charlie? What was the point? What did look on Tyler? I do want to talk about Tyler Robinson. But do you think if it was him, or regardless of who it was, did they believe that it would change anything to help their cause in some way?
Probably in some way. And I'll give some examples, because I'm like you, I'm wrestling with all this stuff, and I'm really trying to just understand it. And that's part of the reason I wrote the book, to understand what's happening and why I'm feeling this way and what we do, what we can do. So if you look at like the string of kind of prominent transgender attempted assassinations and murders, or actual murders recently, you had the individual that came all the way from California to try and assassinate Justice Kavanaugh and his family in Maryland outside his home. And he later came out as transgender. And he believed that, and obviously it was a political motivated, effort, because he was upset about the leaked draft of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. And he told people in his family, I think even certainly prosecutors or the police, that, he thought that he was like doing a service by, stopping this from happening by killing him. None of this is rational, right? When you take these types of actions, it's not rational.
Yeah, exactly. Lending support to my belief that they're just plain sick. I think they're sick people.
Yeah. Well, and I just, one of the things that I think is so important to address is the transgender movement. It's a violent, militant wing of the Democrat Party at this point. And obviously, it's not to say that every transgender person is going to commit an act of violence, just like talking about radical Islam is not saying every single Muslim is a horrible, evil person that's going to kill. But, we need to have a serious national conversation about this stuff like we should have with Islam. I mean, there's something about the religion of Islam, obviously. I mean, this isn't on that subject, but, it's easy to talk about and point out, it's the only major religion that is producing, wide scale, terror attacks and violence in this world. Christians aren't doing it. No other religion's doing it. And the same thing is true of political groups. MAGA's not doing this, but the left is, and which is represented by the Democrat Party today. And with the transgender thing, I mean, these are people who you have to acknowledge are mentally ill. Transgenderism is a mental illness. And, the left attacked Charlie viciously and dehumanized him, called his words violence because he had the nerve to assert that there are only two biological sexes, male and female, and to reject this, coddled, coerced actually idea that you have to acknowledge, transgenderism and support it in young people. And so if you take a mentally ill person and you indoctrinate and baptize them in left-wing politics of grievance and everything else, of course you're going to produce little killers.
That's shocking. I have no insight into the transgender community. I like zero. And not much in the case of Islam. All I know is my perception, shaped by events, is that they seem to be violent people. Maybe they're just angry. Maybe they're just mad. I don't know. Like I said, I have zero insight. The thing that I don't understand is why the Democratic Party would seemingly embrace them and become their enablers. And if Tyler Robinson killed Charlie, why would they celebrate that? I mean, it's just all so bizarre and outside of my level of, I think my ability to comprehend, frankly, that I'm just stupefied.
Yeah, it is hard to understand. And I don't think that many of us can really answer the question of why. But you don't need to be able to answer, I mean, was Hitler an evil person? Yes. Why did he do what he did? I can't get in somebody's mind like that, right? Just like I can't get into certain politicians' minds who just crave power so much. I mean, I'm a person that is a go-getter. I have a family to take care of. I like nice things, which requires, some cash. And so I'm not opposed to any of those things, but I don't live my life looking to have power over other people, even if I have some kind of influence or, power in my particular sphere, it's my motivation is not because I want to beat other people down or feel like I have control over other people, but the Democrats and that whole ideology on the left, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's about conquering, kind of like Islam is, I mean, the religion wants a caliphate. So that's, one leader over all nations that are forced to worship, or believe in Muhammad. And the Democrat ideology, and this is why I think it's important for people to read the book, because I draw some very distinct comparisons to trying to help with this between Islam and the left today. One commits these acts of jihad, mass murder in the name of religion. The Democrats do it in the name of progress. And you're not allowed to disagree with him. You have to bend the knee. It's about conquering, right? And so they always preach this gospel of we're so tolerant. There's no one less tolerant than a Democrat and someone on the left. They have no tolerance for my beliefs. And if they have such little tolerance that they kill you.
It's shocking. It is just the world that we live in today is really shocking. So you think Tyler Robinson did pull the trigger that killed Charlie?
I do, yeah.
Tell us why.
Well, I didn't have any suspicions regarding really the, let me start here. If you go back to the attempted assassination of Justice Kavanaugh, you look at Rand Paul having his ribs broken by his next door neighbor who was a Democrat. If you look at the Bernie Sanders supporter who tried to kill the Republican congressional baseball team practicing, and Steve Scalise was almost killed by that person. If you look at an assassination attempt against Donald Trump, one where he obviously survived, another one where they apprehended the guy like outside his golf club. If you look at the transgender examples of targeting children, whether it's Nashville, Covenant School, and then you look at, 10 days, I think, before Charlie was killed, or 9 days, you had I think it was in Minneapolis, where another transgender person, opened fire on a bunch of kids en masse and killed 2 kids and injured 30 others. And if you look at the Audrey Hale, the Nashville killer, that manifesto, and if you look at the one in Minneapolis more recently, their manifestos read like Barack Obama speeches. They read like a CNN panel on, race relations. I mean, they're they're obviously inspired and encouraged to do this by their leftist beliefs that come from politicians and Democrat politicians, et cetera, that belief system. So we know that the left is violent. We know that they're trying to kill us. We know that they are killing people. And we know that it's the rhetoric from the left that is producing this violence. There's absolutely a direct correlation. And so the idea that somebody who was kind of baptized with, the idea that somebody on the left that wasn't transgender himself, but was in a relationship, a romantic relationship with his roommate who was transgender, that this person would have a motivation to kill Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk was a leader in the conservative movement, someone who spoke out vociferously against transgenderism, somebody who was labeled by, these LGBTQ plus groups out there. Basically, they dehumanized him for years and years. He had death threats on him. So first off, just the premise itself isn't a leap for me. Like, we've seen this happen in this country, that people on the left, especially in the transgender community, if you will, are violent individuals who believe that, the murder of someone, whether it's children or, a right-wing political figure or leader, they justify it. And so that was a starting point for me. Like, there was nothing that was suspicious about that. I mean, I found it more improbable and hard to believe, and you had to kind of chase all these conspiracy theories to believe that, it was Israel, or it was this, or it was that. I mean, that was a reach for me, the underlying reason. So I'll just start there. I mean, ask me as many questions. I'm happy to talk openly about it, but that's where I would start is, okay, is there a motivation? Is that believable and credible? Of course. To me, it is.
Okay. Well, so Tyler was motivated. Okay. That's a pretty low standard to convict someone of murder because of his sexual orientation. He would have such hate for someone that he would murder him. I mean, maybe that could be true, but that's certainly not evidentiary, I don't believe.
No. Of course, that's not evidentiary. I mean, there's fingerprints. You have obviously the camera footage. You have the fact that his own parents turned him in. You have, the Delta Force operators that are snipers that I know in my orbit, and other military personnel that have told me that absolutely is an easy amateur shot to make. They also told me that, he wasn't necessarily a pro because, if it was actually a Delta sniper up there, they probably would have shot him in the face, or they would have shot him, in the chest and the heart. I think that in their opinion, hitting him in the neck like they did, that was actually a miss. That wasn't where they were trying to shoot, obviously.
Yeah, I could buy that.
I mean, I think there are, I think there's plenty of evidence out there. I mean, I guess I would ask is like the contrarian, okay, if you're saying, and I mean you in the general sense, because many people they question the official narrative, and they don't believe it was Tyler Robinson like I do. But the question is, so there is evidence that's been presented about Tyler Robinson. I mean, obviously a lot of it's not coming out because he didn't kill himself. So we're actually going to have a court case. And so obviously it's in the best interest of the prosecutors in this case, to hold some of that stuff close to the vest, I think. But like all the other theories out there, I don't see any evidence for, like the like going with the Israel angle, Like, I think it's totally appropriate that you say, well, hey, just like looking at what's happened in the country and assigning a motive to him based on, kind of even precedent, that's obviously not enough to build a case. And you're absolutely correct on that. But with like Candace Owens and people like that who keep changing their theories, or they start with the Israel thing or whatever else, I say, well, that's a pretty loose thread to claim, oh, well, he had some issues with Israel, and so Israel decided to take him out. Like, to me, that's more insane.
Well, so let me just start by saying I really don't know what to believe. Okay. I really
Sure.
don't know what to believe. And it would be so much easier for me to say, oh yeah, of course it was Tyler Robinson. That would take all the burden off of me to have any further intellectual curiosity about it. But here are the things that hold me up on it. Have you seen the videos of where the security guards are going and they're giving obvious baseball type signals a split second before Charlie was killed? The coincidence is overwhelmingly difficult for me to accept. Then Charlie was not taken to a trauma center. He was taken to they passed one of the best trauma centers in the area to get to another hospital, which was sketchy in and of itself. I don't know if you saw the security chief in his interview on a podcast a month or so ago, and he was talking about how he lacked the authority to fly drones over the site, yet there is huge evidence that there were drones being flown over the site. So whose drones were they? Of particular note is Mikey McCoy. He was Charlie's chief of staff, one of his closest friends. I mean, the instant Charlie was killed, he picked up his phone. He did not dial a number. He did not speed dial a number. I've watched the video 20 times. And he instantly starts talking onto the phone, turns his back, and walks out of the venue. It is bizarre. His father had one explanation. Erica Kirk said, oh, he was calling me. But he didn't call her. Whoever it was, he was already talking to them, it appears. Then Erica's behavior, and I give her a free pass, okay? I cannot put myself in the shoes of a grieving widow, but the stuff that has been presented and her behavior is alarming to me. It's not normal. She does not appear to be a grieving widow, and she has flagrantly lied. She has said that she doesn't drink. Well, we got videos of her drinking in New York. She said she didn't date. We've got pictures of her dating. I mean, there's all sorts of just stuff circling around in her orbit. Then, as Candace Owens has presented, there are 2 Egyptian planes, and I do believe this, that have apparently followed Erica Kirk around the globe, not just in this country, but everywhere that Erica goes, this Egyptian plane shows up. That's freakish. That's bizarro. And that's well before Charlie was assassinated. Then I've got a list. Can I continue? I don't mean to overwhelm you.
Yeah. Go ahead. No. I know all this stuff. I'll debunk it all soon. Go ahead.
I want you to debunk all of it because I want a simple answer. I want it to be a lone, freak, trans, hateful, vengeful person. But I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that he disassembled the 30-06 on the roof, jumped down with it, took it to a field, reassembled it, and left it on a blanket. No, I'm not buying that. Let's see, what else here I've got written down. What is this? There are a series of financial, what appear to be serious irregularities within Turning Point. Charlie wrote a memo 8 days before he died, naming a new COO of Turning Point and ordering a Doge-style audit into the finances of Turning Point. There's a YouTuber, Zach Gregarios, on Wolves and Finance that showed that 3 of the 4 Turning Point companies, 3 of them did not file financial or did not file tax returns for 3 years. As soon as he posted that, the IRS returns showed up, and when you study the returns, there's all sorts of cash payments between Turning Point and these subsidiary entities, and a lot of it, the money, tracks to a state senator in Arizona, millions of dollars. And this company has nothing but a post office box. Then there is, as you pointed out, the Israel smoke, I'll call it. They were upset with Charlie because he invited Tucker Carlson to appear on stage at a Turning Point event, and Tucker had distanced himself from Israel. He did not like the war in Gaza. He felt that it was now turning in from a war in morphing into genocide. And then Charlie himself texted people, one individual the night before, and said, they're coming after me. I'm going to be killed. So if it was a lone guy and Tyler Robinson, why would Charlie have believed that he was in somebody's sights? That doesn't comport to me. So none of what I've just said proves anything, nor does it disprove anything. But what it does is raise huge, material, significant questions about the assassination that, for me, should have led the FBI to have said, there are many people that could be suspects and have something to do with this assassination, and we're not going to rush to judgment and 24 hours later try, convict, and sentence a lone crazed gunman based on a lot of circumstantial evidence. All right, I'll stop and let you please debunk.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, I think that the list of, things that you gave and described, I think that it's not only interesting, it's tantalizing, it's curious.
And may have no linkage to the Charlie's death. I will concede that instantly. There may be no linkage whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's sketchy as hell.
Well, for example, the Candace Owens kind of Egyptian plane theory, she got it wrong herself when she put that information out there, because she put out that original spreadsheet and it was eventually debunked. It was shown that at least, 2/3 of those quote unquote Egyptian planes locations, they were wrong.
Factually wrong.
Yeah, factually wrong. And then the other thing is she didn't explain kind of what the what that actually meant. Okay, Egyptian planes, and it was within several days.
No, it went on for months, Drew.
No, I'm saying that the parameters with which she was saying this plane is in the vicinity or chasing Erica Kirk, or these planes are, it was misleading because it wasn't even on the same day. It was a plus or minus like 3 days window that there could be overlap, and it wasn't even the same airport. So the Egyptian planes could have been landing, 100 miles over here, and Erica Kirk is way over here at a different airport. And so they're taking these coincidences. So when you actually break it down, you look at same day, around the same time, similar location, it was like a couple of times on the spreadsheet. So my point is that wasn't true. Like, people are still saying that. Other people have been saying that about the Egyptian planes, and it's not true. She was saying, 76 times or however many times it didn't. It's not true.
All right, we'll scratch that one off the list for sake of argument.
I think there's still a couple of coincidences.
I'd like to learn more about that. I'm accepting your version because I know you and I respect you and I trust you. I don't think you're making this up. Look, I want to know the truth, and I don't want to spread even unwittingly false information. But I have watched those videos from Candace. I've not seen information that debunk it, but I'd like to. Clearly, I'll stop talking about that if I can get to that point.
If I would say one thing, just to interject, it's like, for me, Candace disproves herself because she's never stuck with a single theory. So she keeps abandoning her old theories for new ones. And that, to me, is an indication that, she's just putting something out there and she's admitting, I mean, every time you change the narrative and say, you know, it goes from, okay, it's the Egyptian planes, and then you go with Israel. And then she at one point was blaming the French Legion and saying that the Macrons were behind it. I mean, I mean, at first, okay, this is kind of interesting, but after she changes her own stories and theories that kind of contradict the previous ones, you know, that's when I just say I've had enough of the Candace thing.
I feel where you're coming from. I mean, it's hard for me to watch Candace. I mean, there's certain parts about her personality and her dogma that turn me off. But the fact of the matter is that I am not embracing any of these theories, but I'm embracing them all because look, you know, I have 6 distinct business interests. I'm a small guy. I file my tax returns. You're talking about $150 million a year annual budget with significant monies going to the sub organizations, and then the money being redistributed, one to a Turning Point insider who collected like a couple of $1 million. And this isn't Candace. I haven't even seen Candace report on any of this. Wolves and Finance is my source on that. And then like $4 million going to the state senator in Arizona who collected this money, but there's no evidence of what goods and services he provided for the money. And so it's just smoke. It's just smoke, but I think it deserves to be looked at. And maybe it has nothing to do with Charlie's murder, but maybe it does. Don't you want to know? I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars, and Charlie himself, in his own words, ordered a forensic accounting of Turning Point USA 8 days before he dies. And then after he dies, Erica Kirk says, no, that's not necessary. We have a CPA firm that audits our books every year. Wasn't good enough for Charlie. That raises questions in my mind, I think legitimately.
Well, let me make an analogy because okay, so I woke up yesterday, I think it was, and I don't remember I think it's it's a congressman, a Republican congressman died right after the holidays. So now our majority in the House of Representatives, the Republican majority, is shrinking again. MTG's out because she's a coward, and now you've got this other guy who died all of a sudden. And over the holidays, they're telling me, you know, he was perfectly healthy seeming, and we had conversations with him, and now he's dead. I could go down a very deep rabbit hole of suggesting the timing of this and contemplating it and looking into probably his finances and other things to try and, you know, figure out, well, did the Democrats kill this guy? Was he poisoned? Because obviously the beneficiary of, you know, this Republican going out, now we have no room for error. We know the Democrats want to impeach Trump. They're trying to stop Trump's agenda. And this guy just happens to die after the holidays, right as we go into midterm elections where we have this period of time.
I have no insight into that. I have none.
My point is, you have a death. This wasn't, you know, an assassination.
Okay, but you're saying conjecture. You're saying you can conjecture. I'm not giving you conjecture. I'm giving you hard, cold facts that significant millions of dollars.
But the Egyptian planes wasn't a fact, is my point.
Okay, well, and I've said I'm scratching that off my list. That leaves another. That leaves Mikey McCoy's bizarre behavior at the scene. I can tell you, I don't know you that well, Drew, but if I was in your presence and something happened to you, I would rush to your side and administer first aid and do what I could to help you. I would not casually turn my back and walk off the venue.
Well, I mean, he's not certified to go and, you know, give any kind of life-saving care. I mean, his security detail did do that.
I don't know what he is certified or not certified to do, but the reaction was bizarre and it was unnatural, and they were supposed to be best friends. That proves nothing. It just raises significant questions that I want someone to put a magnifying glass on. I want someone to look at Turning Point's finances and do a deep dive on it and find out, is there any connection or reason to believe that there's a connection between the millions of dollars that were paid that don't make sense based on their face, and Charlie's ordering an audit and approximately loses his life? I think it bears looking at. I mean, if a spouse dies, the first thing they do is look to see if they're having an affair with somebody. This is analogous. We've got something that doesn't seem right, and someone loses their life. And they were aware that it didn't seem life. They also were aware that they were a marked man and thought that they were going to die. Well, what's missing from that is he didn't tell us who he suspected was going to kill him. Maybe he told somebody. I don't know.
Well, it was pretty general. I mean, Charlie was being threatened pretty much every day. I mean, he pretty frequently had conversations with people about security and upping security, and he had upped security and spent more money on it.
Well, this is all I'm trying to say. This is it. I want a thorough and complete, honest investigation. And if it was if the evidence proves Tyler Robinson did it, I will willingly accept it. But I'm just telling you, all these other things that are swirling around make me very suspicious. But I mean, one of the people I respect most on earth today is Tucker Carlson, and he shares your opinion. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying there seems to have been a rush to judgment, and a lot of the narrative does not add up for me. And I would just like, rather than naming, trying, and convicting this one lone guy that is easy to dislike because he's in a trans relationship, just seems kind of pat to me.
Well, I have a question, and this is something I wrestle with too. So I think that one of the reasons we find ourselves in this situation where we're so suspicious, obviously, is we have massive distrust in our government.
100%.
For correct reasons after what we've gone through.
Yep.
But I guess my question is now, okay, now you've got Trump back in office. People loved Kash Patel.
I don't.
He's now obviously, well, I mean, did you love him before he joined the FBI?
No, I didn't. I'll be honest. I did not dislike him, but he's never really floated my boat. Other people, I mean, I'm in the minority, but there has always been something about him that I've never really been totally comfortable with. Maybe it's professional envy. Hell, I don't know. But there was something in my psyche that did not readily embrace Kash. Bongino, the opposite. I love the guy, and I always felt that he was trustworthy, and I believe that he was a purveyor of the truth. I did not have that comfort with Kash, and today less so. And the Epstein files have everything to do with my lack of conviction and trust in him. And your point is very valid that we do have prisms that we look at things through. And as our listeners and viewers are fully aware of, my skepticism arose on November the 22nd, 1963, and I haven't been dissuaded from that since. Today, I think we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that our own government killed John Kennedy and proceeded to cover it up. And nobody's given me a plausible explanation for why Building 7 collapsed. I do believe it was a controlled demolition. I've talked to a witness firsthand that convinced me that it was a controlled demolition. We could go down the list. Martin Luther King, his family doesn't believe that James Earl Ray killed him. A jury of 12 people in a civil lawsuit concluded that James Earl Ray was not the assassin, and that it was involved people in our own government. So yeah, I have got a very hefty quotient of skepticism on all this stuff, and frankly, I'm sick and tired of it. I really want the evil to be surgically removed from our government, and to the extent that we could do it, from our society. And we can start by rounding up all the Somalis that ripped us off for the last 10 years in Minnesota. I'd be happy to throw them in jail, but I'd rather just deport them and let their sentence be the best sentence of a life of destitute and despair, and go back to Somalia. That's really what I would like to see happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Y'all still gonna represent me tomorrow now, Drew?
John, I love this stuff, man. Can I tell you something on a serious note? Like, you know what I loved about Charlie is, well, one, he had such a genuine confidence and conviction. Like, this is a guy, what made him so unique was he wanted to debate people. He was comfortable with it. He actually, like, it was enjoyable for him. Most people don't want to, like, I'm not upset with you at all, John. Like, I'm listening to you. I'm pushing back a little bit. You know, people can listen. It's good. Like, I have confidence in kind of the things that I do know about, that I believe. There are many questions that you have about this stuff that no one can answer right now, and that's the truth. But I don't know. I think this is so healthy, you know.
Well, I'm just genuinely and generally pissed off. And I knew Charlie. I knew Charlie for 8 years. I met him in Athens, Georgia, on the University of Georgia campus when I was there for a political event, and he was there to speak to 3,000 students on the UGA campus in 2017. And we had each other's cell phone numbers. I was not close to Charlie. I wouldn't even say that we were friends. I'd say that we were congenial acquaintances. Mm-hmm. But I saw him a couple of 3 times every year for 8 years. And a year ago, I had an hour-and-a-half meeting with Charlie and a mutual friend, one-on-one, that lasted for an hour-and-a-half. This is nothing about anything, but when I was walking into the meeting, I walked past the Suburban, and I feel guilty about it now. I'm just being honest. I passed the Suburban, and it had 4 goons in it with little speakers in their ear. And I said, well, here's a guy that's got delusions of grandeur and thinks that he's some sort of like pseudo head of state. And I'm sorry. I apologize. I was wrong. He deserved the security that he had. I felt that my impression was that it was a masquerade, but little did I know I had not walked a mile in his shoes. And I feel bad for even having had that thought. But I'm just saying, I knew Charlie. I hugely respected him. He was the singularly smartest human being that I have ever known. AJ Rice is a close second. I mean, AJ is brilliant. Charlie could quote the Bible. He could quote history. I mean, he had a recollection for dates and times and events. He knew every single member of Congress's name. He knew the county commission chairman in key counties across the nation. I mean, he was a phenomenon. And to have him taken from us senselessly, that accomplished nothing, just really, it makes me sad, and it really makes me mad, and I want justice. But I want honest justice.
Yeah. Well, you know, here, I don't know if maybe you'll agree with this, maybe you won't. Like, the main thing I want, and I guess it operates from my prism and what I believe happened, obviously, in the motivation and so on and so forth. And look, I guess we'll all find out, you know, when the court date comes, and hopefully we'll be pleased with, you know, what we discover.
Well, I'll just tell you, if I'm right, there won't be a court date. Tyler Robinson will be Epsteined. And that's actually what I predict will happen.
I hope you're wrong, right? I hope you're wrong.
I do too. It is not what I want, but I have that instinct that something is going to happen to Tyler Robinson.
You know, one of the things that I'm sick of is there being no accountability.
100%.
And like, their rhetoric is leading to violence. The left is a dangerous ideology that is becoming increasingly violent. And I guess that's the point for me, right? So, like, I felt like there was a huge, fragile window of opportunity after Charlie's assassination. And like I said, I believe it was Tyler Robinson, and he was killed by someone who was a radical leftist, right? That's what I believe. But I felt like there was this opportunity to have a national conversation about how we got to this point in this country where we're going to have this kind of violence targeting conservatives over and over and over again. And one of our greatest, most promising, future and current leaders in this country, in this movement, was gunned down. And I thought that we should have held the left accountable for the dehumanization, because at the end of the day, Charlie was dehumanized by the left. I mean, they viewed him. I mean, we talked about the celebrations of leftists in this country after he died. The list I went through of the attempted assassination of Trump and so on and so forth. And it's obvious that the left, their rhetoric is leading to violence. And there's no both sides. This is not happening in MAGA. This is not happening from our movement, because our movement is built on, a belief in a transcendent power, which Charlie Kirk always talked about. We don't believe in moral relativism. We don't reduce people to caricatures. We don't reduce people to clumps of cells, like the, pro-abortion people who just believes that it's a life only if you want to have the baby or not, right? And so this was the conversation we should have had, I thought. Why is this happening? We have a problem with the left in this country. We need to address it. We need to address, and that was Charlie's legacy for me, was he recognized and spoke about the spiritual decay and cultural decay that were linked together in this country. And he was trying to free people from this misery that the left-wing ideology leads their, followers down. And that conversation never happened. And that's my problem. I wish we could have, asked some of these questions and talk about, we don't trust the FBI, or, can we look at the finances? I want to dig into all of this so we have restore trust in our government, and we understand and believe that Tyler Robinson or someone else was responsible. But can we also talk about Charlie Kirk's legacy? Because I feel like his legacy's just been kind of left behind. And obviously TPUSA has problems. I didn't like AmFest very much. There's a lot of people trying to replace him that are not Charlie Kirk, and they're frankly not even good people.
Charlie Kirk despised Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro's the MC at AmFest. That proves nothing. It relates to nothing, but it is to your point that why of all people would they pick Ben Shapiro? I used to like the guy. Now I've decided I don't. Anyway.
There are just a lot of serious issues that we've been avoiding talking about. And I feel like there should have been a reckoning after Charlie Kirk's assassination. And we still haven't had that reckoning. And I want to have that reckoning, which is partially why I wrote the book.
Well, I can't wait to get the book. I wish I could have read it before we came on the air today. But send me an autographed copy, will you? And where can we get it?
I'll definitely send you on Amazon. People can get on Amazon. They actually censored the book for 3 weeks. But now it's available. They can get it there.
Why would they censor a book about an American treasure?
I've never seen it happen before. It's never happened to me, and it's never happened to anyone I know actually on Amazon. But yeah, they kept putting up messages like "can't be shipped to your address," and it was kind of like a censorship through friction. They were making it really hard to get, and they'd shut it down. But actually, it's available now. People can buy it. It seems like, at least for now, they're letting it go. And I'm the #1 selling book in the LGBTQ plus demographic studies category, John. You're talking to a best-selling alphabet mafia writer.
Wow.
But I put it in that category on purpose to troll the left, and also because I talk about transgenders in the book. So it's actually not a complete troll.
Well, I'm going to pray for your safety. If you're right about Tyler Robinson, I heard what you said, and it really resonated with me in terms of we had an opportunity to make it the source of a national conversation, and instead we've spent most of the time talking about who done it. We really should be talking about Charlie's legacy, and I've had this notion that could we start a national conversation? The mayor of New York, what was his name? He used to walk down the streets and say, "How am I doing?" Ed Koch. And I wonder if we could start a national conversation like in that vein and say, on what do we agree? what can we agree on? And start making a list. The first thing I would like us to agree on is that political assassination from any political persuasion is absolutely forbidden and not acceptable on any level. And we should be condemning people that, I mean, not violently, I mean, violent in our oratory, people that would celebrate the death of a political figure. I mean, that is just, I mean, can't we agree at least on that? I mean, if we can't, does that mean AOC is fair game and Ilhan Omar is fair game? I would never advocate that. I would never advocate the killing of anybody unless they had done something horrific to women and children, or just, you know, like Charles Manson, the capital punishment. I would be okay with that for him. But that's a legal process, and there are laws that sanction it. But can we just agree that murder is not acceptable on any level?
Yeah, yeah.
And then we can go to the second commandment. Don't steal.
Yeah, I mean,
don't lie. Don't covet thy neighbor's wife. Don't cheat on your spouse. I mean, what's the matter? Why could we just not agree on the 10 commandments and take it out of a biblical kind of dialogue, but just say, here are the things on which we can agree?
Yeah, we can't, though, because the left has been so successful and so determined to convince people to turn against everything that this country represents that is great. So you're talking about the founding of the country, even, you know, the 10 commandments. I mean, this is why I address Christians in this book, and I quote scripture heavily because I'm a Christian too. And there is not a single policy on the left that complies with scripture. It doesn't. They can isolate a passage and bastardize it and try and feed it to you as the gospel truth. But if you actually study scripture and you are a Bible-based Christian like Charlie Kirk was, in which I am, and I'm trying to be even more, but since his death, I was so heartbroken but motivated. Point to a policy that the Democrat Party, you know, stands behind that is in line with actual real Christianity, not woke Christianity and woke churches. You can't. It's antithetical, and that's the point. That's why, by the way, you have Mamdani. That's why you have this alliance now between the Democrat Party and Muslims. You know, people used to, how can gays be for Palestine? Gays for Palestine, right? In Palestine, you can't be gay. They'll kill you. It's illegal. Well, because they have an objective that overrides all of those other issues. So for the left, it's the destruction of this country. And obviously Muslims are on board with that too. So it's an unholy alliance until they prevail, which we can't let them. And then they'll go after each other. But, you know, we're dealing with really dark, sinister forces right now. I mean, that's kind of where I'll leave it, I guess. But, you know, the light is, I think we're making a lot of progress. We just have to stay focused. And I think that, you know, Charlie gave us a great blueprint for what we as individuals should be doing.
Well, I think that's very well said, Drew. And I really appreciate the respectful conversation that we've enjoyed today. I don't know you that well, but I've known you for a spell now, and I've always liked you very much. And I admire the fact that you're hardworking. I appreciate your values very much. And you've got a nice family, and you're working the American dream. And I really don't want anything to interfere with that for you, for my 3 boys, and who are in the prime of their life. And I hope that each of you can enjoy the American dream, and that you have an opportunity to have all the benefits and the wonderful life that this country has afforded me and my wife. And capitalism has been very good to us. I watched a video this morning from a guy that decided that he was just going to go visit Cuba. And it's a very interesting, kind of fun video to watch, but you walk away from it with the inescapable conclusion that Cuba is mired in the 1950s. It has made no progress forward. The country is in poverty. And that's when Castro came in, took over, and imposed communism. It does not work. And why the people that are pushing these kinds of socialist and communist ideals on our country is bizarro to me, because that's the country that their children are going to have to live in. And nowhere on the face of the earth has it ever worked.
100%. China. I mean, every place that, isn't totally self-destructing like a Venezuela or a Cuba, they've adopted obviously elements of free market capitalism because it works. And that's, you hit on something frustrating, because the United States of America knows exactly, we know how to succeed because we have succeeded before. And on the other side, we know how to destroy ourselves because the model that is being implemented to do that has led to failure and destruction everywhere else. And so it's crazy that you have people that are so mind numbed and stupid and indoctrinated that they can't just embrace Americanism, because we know it made us the greatest country in the history of the world.
You're 100% right. With that, thank you, Drew. Come back soon and often. And I do appreciate your friendship, and I've enjoyed our conversation, and I hope our listeners have as well. And we've had some good banter back and forth. In my mind, it's not you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong. It's a search for the truth. And that's all I really want in all of these conversations. Just if we could start there, can we all agree that the truth will be our lowest common denominator, and one thing on which we can all agree and embrace? Seems like a good place to start to me.
Absolutely. Man, God bless you, brother. I love it.
Well, thank you very much, Drew, and have a great new year, and my best to you and your family.
Thanks, brother.